Britain's new King Charles III gave his first official address following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And in his message, King Charles described the late monarch as a selfless public servant and a devoted and loving mother. King Charles III pledged to renew the promise of lifelong service as he ascends to the throne. Members of Parliament in the United Kingdom, including former Prime Ministers, convened for a special session this afternoon to pay tribute to the late Queen, describing her as an indomitable leader whose selfless and intergenerational service to her people remains evident even in her death. Serfine Achieng now gives us the details of what characterized the first official day of mourning UK's longest-serving monarch and events that will unfold in the coming days ahead of her state funeral.
The first day of official mourning of Queen Elizabeth II, news of her death still sinking in. Hundreds of people decorated royal residences at Balmoral Castle, Windsor and Buckingham Palace with flowers and tribute messages. Flags lowered at half-mast, a symbol that Britain's longest-serving monarch is no more.
Fire!
The solemn atmosphere interrupted with gun salutes.
Fire!
Fired in several parts of the UK. 1 to 96 rounds fired to mark each year of her life.
Fire!
Bells were tolled in churches across the UK to honour the late Queen. Members of Parliament in the United Kingdom, including former Prime Ministers, convened for a special session this afternoon to pay tribute to the late Queen, describing the late monarch as an indomitable leader whose selfless and intergenerational service to her people remains evident even in her death.
As parliamentarians, we have celebrated with her for silver, golden, diamond jubilees, and of course, marked her platinum jubilee this year.
Her first son, King Charles III, and the Queen Consort Camilla travelled to Buckingham Palace in London to lead plans for the Queen's funeral arrangements, even as arrangements for his official ascent to the throne commence.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother, for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example.
The period of mourning is expected to be temporarily interrupted on Saturday during the official proclamation of King Charles III as the new monarch. As is typical of the royal tradition, the proclamation will be read in front of a ceremonial body known as the Ascension Council at James Palace in London. To signify the transition, flags will be raised until Sunday afternoon and then revert to half-mast to turn attention back to the funeral of the late Queen. As soon as the Queen became the monarch, details of what would happen if she died were planned down to the last minute. A special team, among them government and palace officials, the police and the army, were required to meet several times to discuss the plan. Queen Elizabeth II died peacefully at 96 years of age after 70 years on the throne. Her death was announced by Buckingham Palace on Thursday evening. According to the plan, the Queen's death was to be communicated through the coded phrase, "London Bridge is down." Soon after her death was confirmed, her private secretary delivered the message to the Prime Minister, as it is also shared to the news media outlets across the UK and the world. A 10-day official period of national mourning began today and will be observed across the UK until the Queen's state funeral. Buckingham Palace also announced that a period of royal mourning will be observed until 7 days after the Queen's funeral. This is to be observed by members and staff and representatives of the royal household. During this time, the UK government said there was no obligation to cancel or postpone events and sporting fixtures or close entertainment venues, leaving it at the discretion of individual organizations. Among the activities postponed include the English Premier League matches, much to the disappointment of football fans across the globe. The Queen's coffin will rest in the throne room at Buckingham Palace for 4 days after her death. It will then be moved to Westminster Hall, where it will lie in state until the funeral, as members of the public get a chance to pay their last respects. The funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II will be held at Westminster Abbey. The coffin will then be driven to Windsor Castle, where she will be buried at St. George's Chapel, which is the resting place of nearly all of her royal predecessors. News of her passing was received with sadness across the world, with President Uhuru Kenyatta leading Kenya to mourn the monarch, whose reign as queen began during her visit to Kenya in 1952 when her father died. Speaking during an event organized by the military to bid him farewell as the outgoing commander-in-chief, the outgoing head of state hailed the late queen for her selfless service.
Ningewauliza kwa heshima ya Malikia ambaye aliaga jana usiku, kama tunaweza tusimame kwa dakika moja ya heshima, kwa sababu tunajua alipata mamlaka yake akiwa kwa nchi hii yetu ya Kenya.
Serfine Achieng, Citizen TV.